Hello, I'm Ryan Jones, and welcome to this part of the Office of Public and Indian Housing's training on the implementation of the Housing Opportunity through Modernization Act of 2016. In this training segment, I will walk through the sample project-based voucher program cap calculations worksheet that was included with the PIH implementation notice and discussed in Appendix 1 of the PBV program cap calculation instructions. By walking through the worksheet, I will illustrate the impact of the HOTMA PBV program limitation, including the 10% increase for eligible units. Use of the worksheet transmitted with the PIH notice is optional. HUD transmitted the worksheet to help illustrate the impact of HOTMA and provide an optional tool that could be adopted for use by PHAs. While this worksheet may be submitted to HUD as part of a PHA's PBV request to HUD as described in attachments C and D of the notice, PHAs may use other means to submit the program cap information to HUD. So a little about the worksheet. This is a pre-populated sheet to show what it may look like if fully built out. In this case, a PHA that has a considerable portfolio of PBV units. PHAs deciding to use this worksheet can remove the sample inputs and put in their own. Let's walk through the worksheet. At the top of the worksheet is an area for inputting PHA information. The fillable rows are 2 through 6. Directly under the space for PHA information is a summary table starting at row 8. Editing of the summary table is locked. What I mean by that is the table uses pre-established formulas that automatically calculate, among other things, the 20% program cap and the 10% increase for eligible units based on the information entered by the PHA in steps 1 through 5. The table also shows the percentage used to date, including any units that the PHA has proposed to project base in a particular submission, and the percentage available to be used after all PBV units are accounted for. PHAs should complete steps 1 through 5 of the worksheet first, and then review the summary table. Based on the number of units a PHA has already project-based, the number it proposes to project-base, the number of such units that are part of an exception category, and the number that are excluded entirely from the program cap, the summary table will show whether the PHA's proposal will push it above the applicable program cap. This may be a helpful feature for those PHAs that are coming up against the cap as a result of a large PBV portfolio. For today's training, after going through the inputs in steps 1 through 5, I'll walk through what appears in the summary table and illustrate what happens if we change some of the inputs. Moving on to step 1 of the worksheet. At row 17, column F, record the number of authorized units as described in attachment C of the notice. This number may be found in the Inventory Management System PIH information system. In this example, 500 ACC units have been reported. Starting at step 2, you will see the 2 labeled columns. The first column is titled HUD Approved. This is where a PHA enters the total number of units either currently under a PBV HAP contract, under an agreement to enter into a HAP contract, and or covered by a notice of proposal selection. In the second column titled Proposed, this is where a PHA would enter the number of units proposed for project basing. In steps 2 through 5, enter 0 in each category that is not applicable to your agency. Where a unit would qualify under more than one exception category, only record that unit in one such category. So let's look at step 2. These are PBV units that previously received long-term HUD housing subsidies or were subject to a rent restriction as a result of certain HUD loan insurance programs. These are limited to PBV HAP contracts that first became effective on or after April 18, 2017. For this section, record units that were previously subject to certain federal rent restrictions or that received another type of long-term housing subsidy provided by HUD that do not count toward the program cap when PBV assistance is attached as described in attachment F of the notice. Lines 20 through 28 list the categories applicable under this step. Units entered in any of the categories under this step must fully comply with the conditions described in attachment F of the notice. Line 29 automatically calculates the total based on the information entered in lines 20 through 28. PHAs will be unable to enter information in line 29. Moving on to step 3, titled Other PBV Units Excluded from Program Cap Calculations. Other units excluded from the program cap as described in attachment F of the notice are recorded here. There are 2 categories under this step: RAD units, components 1 and 2, and HUD-VASH units awarded under HUD-VASH PBV set-aside allocation as described in attachment F of the notice. These categories are listed in lines 32 through 34. Line 35 automatically calculates the total based on the information entered in lines 32 through 34. PHAs will be unable to enter information into line 35. Moving on to step 4, titled PBV Units Categorized under the 10% Increase for Eligible Units. These units are limited to PBV HAP contracts first executed on or after April 18, 2017, as described in attachment D of the notice. Lines 38 through 41 of the PBV Program Cap Calculation Worksheet list the categories applicable under this step. Any PBV units awarded under a HUD-VASH PBV set-aside allocation will not qualify under this step. These units must instead be entered under Step 3. Any tenant-based allocation of HUD-VASH vouchers the PHA chooses to project-base, as described in attachment M of the notice, may be recorded here if they qualify for the 10% exception category described in attachment D of the notice. Line 42 automatically calculates the total based on the information entered in lines 38 through 41. PHAs will be unable to enter information in line 42. Moving on to step 5, total PBVs not meeting an exception. These are units not contained in steps 2 through 4 above. At line 45, a PHA records the number of HUD-approved units that do not meet the criteria for being included under steps 2, 3, or 4. In line 46, the PHA records units that the PHA proposes to project base. Let's now walk through what is happening in the sample worksheet. This PHA has 500 units under ACC, but you will notice that on line 10, it says the PHA has a revised baseline of 400. This is because step 2 and 3 involve tabulating units that are exempt from the program cap. So when we look at step 2, we see 40 HUD-approved units under the categories in lines 20 through 28. These 40 units reduce the initial baseline of 500 units to 460. Then in step 3, the PHA has 60 units that meet one of the categories listed in rows 32 through 34. Again, the revised baseline is reduced by these 60 units, resulting in a revised baseline of 400 units from which the program cap will be calculated. Before we move on, note that the PHA is proposing an additional 19 units in step 2 that can be seen in column G. If approved, these units would then be moved to the HUD-approved column and further reduce the PHA's revised baseline. For example, changing the number of units under the public housing capital or operating funds where the public housing project underwent voluntary conversion or disposition category at line 20, column F, from 10 to 14 would reduce the baseline down to 396. Let's test that out. There we go, 396. I'll undo that change now. Let's now walk through how a PHA can tell if a proposal will place the PHA above the program cap. In such cases, the summary table will display in red the percent available under the respective cap. For example, if a PHA proposes to project-base more than 10% of its available ACC units under the 10% exception category, then the 10% program cap field in the summary table will be highlighted in red. Let's test this out. At line 38, column F, the PHA has proposed to project-base 5 units for homeless in addition to the 10 already HUD approved. If I change the 5 to 20, let's see what happens in the summary table. As you can see, line 13, column F, has turned red and indicates that this change would put the PHA at 30.30% project-based, putting it over the maximum number of units that the PHA can project-base, in addition to putting it over the 10% program cap limit by almost 3%. So we were worried that we would exceed the 10% cap, but we should also have been worried about exceeding the maximum number of units that can be project-based. Now I'll undo that change in the number of homeless PBV units to be proposed so that we see that the PHA's proposal for 5 units is okay. But what if a PHA wants to project-base more units for homeless? The PHA may either reduce the number of exception units it proposes to project-base. In this case, although it can't do 20 units, it can do 9 without exceeding the cap. Or if the 20% cap has not been met, it may move the units to the 20% program cap category. So if this PHA wants additional units to serve homeless, it could include the 9 under the homeless exception and another 9 under step 5 for PBVs not meeting an exception at line 46, column G, bringing the total proposed to 29 in that column. Adding more units than that would put the PHA over its combined cap of 30%. We can also play around with the number of units under the 20% cap. For example, if the PHA's proposal will cause it to exceed the 20% cap, then it may move the units to the 10% exception category, but only if the units are eligible and there is room within the 10% category for additional units. Let's test this out by making changes to the data already inputted on the sheet. Again, looking at step 5. For PBV proposed not meeting an exception, this PHA has proposed 20 units that do not meet an exception, or the PHA did not categorize the units under an eligible exception. If you scroll up to the summary table, you'll see that in this sample scenario, the PHA has 2.5% remaining under the 20% program cap and 1% available under the 10% program cap limit. So let's see how many more units this PHA may project-based. I played around with the numbers a bit in advance of the training and found that the proposal for 20 units may be increased to 30 units. So let's make that change. So if we look at the summary table, this change results in the PHA having 0% remaining to be project-based under the 20% program limit. The PHA still has that 1% available under the 10% program limit. Again, I played around with the numbers prior to the training and found that this PHA may project-base an additional 3 units under the 10% exception. For this example, let's put them under row 40 for PBV units that provide supportive housing to persons with disabilities or to elderly persons. Returning to the summary table, this PHA has just 0.25% remaining to be project-based under the 10% exception. In this case, the PHA has hit its cap because that 0.25% does not equal a whole unit. To conclude this training segment, I want to remind everyone that the use of this worksheet tool is completely voluntary. I do hope that you will find that it is helpful in visualizing the program cap as a result of HOTMA. That concludes this segment of the training. Thank you for your attention.